Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Linda Marone. I'm Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Data Conversion Laboratory, and I will be your moderator today. Before we actually get started, I just wanted to let you know that we will allow time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers, so please write yours in the chat area as they come to mind. And if we don't have time to answer all of them, we will make sure that they are available on our site. For those of you who are not familiar with DCL, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and basically get it ready for tomorrow's technology. DCL services help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs, both today and in the future. As you can see, DCL serves a very broad client base spanning all industries. This morning, we are thrilled to introduce Dr. JoAnn Hackos. Dr. Hackos is president of Comtext Services, a content management and information design firm based in Denver, Colorado, which she founded in 1978. She is director of the Center for Information Development Management, or CIDM, a membership organization focused on content management and information development best practices. Dr. Hackos and colleagues are called upon by corporate executives worldwide to consult on strategies for content management development and organizational management, product interface design, customer studies, web and traditional information architecture, and tools and technology selection and implementation. For more than 33 years, Dr. Hackos has addressed audiences internationally on subjects ranging from content management, project management, effective interfaces and information, minimal information products, usability testing, and online and web-based information, to managing the information design and development process. Her workshops are dedicated to enhancing the practices and products that will best promote customer satisfaction. JoAnn is a fellow and past president of the International Society for Technical Communication, STC. Our session today is the first of a three-part series focusing on getting change to happen. In part one, Making a Business Case for Change, Dr. Hackos will introduce the power of habit, the theme for the upcoming Best Practices Conference that is being held from September 10th through the 12th in Monterey, California. The theme is based on the New York Times bestseller, The Power of Habit, Why We Do What We Do in Life and Business by Charles Duhigg. Many managers face the challenge of instituting organizational change that requires that people recognize a behavior that has become a habit, understand that a new way of working is needed, and find a path to that new way of working so that it eventually becomes a new habit. If you believe there has to be a better way, you're on the cusp of changing your organizational habits. In this session, Dr. Hackos will explain how you can review your current practices, evaluate inefficiencies and high costs, and look for opportunities for change. Without further ado, welcome Dr. Hackos.
Thank you, Linda. I'm pleased to be part of this discussion this morning, and hope everyone will have a good time and have things to be sure to ask us as we go along. Be sure that everyone is aware that we are going to be recording this, and there will be a recording available afterwards. I know we always get that question, so let's start out with that. That's a good starting point. As Linda said, we are involved with all kinds of organizations. You see just a smattering here of the groups that we work with. Many times, the purpose of what we're doing with all of these groups is to affect some significant change in their organizations. It'll be a change from the way they are writing content to the way they think about their customers, to the technology that they use to create content, such as the DITA standard or the use of content management systems. And all of those changes are are really challenging, both for managers to put into place and also for people in the teams to understand and accept. So as Linda said, we've all been very excited about the Power of Habit, the new book by Charles Duhigg that is going to be the theme for the upcoming Best Practices Conference. And I wanted to introduce you to this, to get you thinking about it, and to think about how you might influence your own organization to make changes more acceptable, to make changes that are more successful, and to really understand the process that you need to go through, because having changes work effectively is really difficult. Too often we're hearing these sorts of messages. We've always done it this way. This is really easy. Why would we want to change it? It would be too hard to learn a new way to do something. I don't want to deal with a new technology. I'm busy enough. I have plenty to do. And besides, we wouldn't get as good results out of something new as we're doing now. And all of that language, all of that kind of process that's going on, and as people are resisting the ideas of change, it's pretty standard. It's pretty much a normal way of facing things. But I think we can learn from Duhigg's work and the summaries that he has of significant research in the field, that there are ways that we can make this much more comfortable and much more effective. What I want to start out with is a little video. I'm going to introduce us to Charles Duhigg, and this is a little YouTube where he talks about the power of habit. Sorry about the ads.
Hey, JoAnn, the audio isn't coming through for that video.
Are we not getting the audio at all?
No, that just very faintly.
I wonder if there's something we can do. Well, what you can see is there's a YouTube video, Creatures of Habit by Charles Duhigg, and I'd invite you to go to that yourself. I'm going to add that into the chat to go to all the participants. I'll give you the URL. There you go. And hopefully you can go back and see that, because I think it's a really good introduction. It's surprising that it's not coming through. Okay, so let me close that. But what he's saying, of course, is that habits are the ordinary ways we do things in life. There was a study recently that he talks about of a group of students at university, and the researchers said that 45 to 50% of everything that these students were doing was based on habits. Habits are really useful. They save us lots of time. If we had to think about everything we do all of the time, it would be impossible to get anything done. Most of the habits that we have are pretty useful. They save us time. They save us energy. But there are some of them, especially those we have to deal with as managers in organizations facing change, that get in the way of change, that get in the way of doing something innovative, doing things that we really need to do to make a difference in our organizations and a difference with our customers. Duhigg introduces this nice little simple graphic. that it's called the habit loop. And the habit loop is, the standard way that we can talk about and think about what habits are. The sort of core of habits, of course, is routine. So the routine is the behavior that you want to identify and understand, excuse me, and also the behavior that you want to change. So you might say, you have a habit of, one like Duhigg had, of every day, going up to the cafeteria at 10 o'clock and having a cookie. This is the one that Duhigg talks about himself in the book. Going and having a cookie. And while he's there at the cafeteria having a cookie, he also talks to some colleagues and friends and spends, maybe 20 minutes with the cookie before he goes back to his desk. Well, fine, not a bad behavior, except that what he found is that he was gaining about 18 pounds based upon extra cookies, right? So he decided, this is really a behavior that I need to change. So the first thing is to identify the behavior. What is it? Okay, I'm going to get the cookie. What is it? What's wrong with that? Well, the cookie is causing me to gain weight. No, I don't want to do that. So now I've got to think about just what really is happening here. And the next step of that, the second step, is to really examine the reward. What makes this behavior so attractive? Why does he keep going every day at 10 o'clock and getting this cookie? What's so great about it? Is it just eating the cookie? Well, as he began to analyze the behavior and understand the reward, the real reward he was able to figure out was that he got a chance to talk to colleagues, get up from his desk, get out of the routine that he was of work, take a little break, and get to talk to a few people. That was really what was most important to him, a lot more important than the cookie. In fact, the cookie was really the cue. What was going on. So in isolating the cue, he said, what was important here? He had a certain time of day in which this always occurred, so he could isolate that time of day. He was feeling, maybe a little down, working hard, needed a little break. So in terms of emotional state, he was at his desk, isolated from other people, and he really needed to have a shift in doing something a little different. So getting the cookie was the starting point, the routine behavior, but it really wasn't the reward. So what he did in changing his habit was to really work on the real reward. So instead, at 10 o'clock, he would still head up to the cafeteria, and instead of getting a cookie, he would simply sit down with a few people and spend 10 or 15 minutes talking and with friends and colleagues, and that was enough of a reward. And he found out that by practicing and being really aware of what was going on, he was able to break the cookie habit and also, of course, lose the weight that he'd gained. So there's the habit loop. This is this continuous perspective to have us understand what's happening with the way we're behaving, especially if it's something that we personally really want to change. Now, of course, in a business environment, it's often the business and the management that is pushing for the change. It's not necessarily just yourself and one habit that you have. I might have a habit, for example, and I know a lot of technical communicators do, of working really hard on a new piece that I'm writing. I might be working in, if I'm working on a proposal or a white paper, I might be working in Microsoft Word. And I know that it's very tempting to kind of take a break from writing So my routine, take a break from writing because I'm out of ideas. The next new idea isn't coming too quickly. I really do need to get invigorated and thinking in a new way. So I have this cue. There's something wrong. I'm not feeling all that comfortable. The next ideas are not coming very quickly. So what do? I figure out how to change the heading levels to a different color. Or I make sure I've made all of the first paragraphs. I've styled them as first paragraphs after a heading. Or what I do is actually go around and futz with the page design. And, I've been writing for a long time, and I've been writing on the computer for probably close to 30 years. And I know how tempting this is, this habit of doing a little formatting, run the spell check. And the reward is that I get to take a break from the hard work of figuring out what to say, or of revising, or of rereading, and and changing and smoothing the content and making it more relevant and correct. So, in understanding this habit, I need to look at the reward, say what I really need is a break. I certainly do not need to be fooling around with the formatting, because that's just a waste of time. I have a perfectly good style sheet that works just fine. So to change this behavior, I've got to figure out how to substitute or find a better reward to break the routine. And that reward might be, to get up and take a short walk, or to, go, get a cup of tea, and to do something that breaks that habit and not waste my time doing something that's unnecessary. And I often find when we're trying to encourage writing groups to change to XML-based editing, that this compulsion to check the style and to see if it looks okay really does begin to show its stripes as a strong habit. And it means finding a new reward, for that little bit of break that you need. So the cue is I need a break. The routine I want to change is not fooling around with the style. If I'm working in a DITA editor, what I shouldn't be doing is running the document through the publishing process so I can see what the style looks like, but leaving it alone, taking a short break and then coming back when I'm refreshed and I'm ready to go ahead. So there's an example, I think, of a pretty good, pretty typical situation that we, as professional writers, we often find ourselves. Okay, so the habit loop. How do we look at this in terms of an organization? What does this have to do with managing change in your organization? Well, recognize that there's a lot of commitment to something that's a habit, that's comfortable. It doesn't require a lot of active thought. It's sort of a mental break. It's something we're familiar with, and it's very comfortable. It helps us avoid anxiety and other uncomfortable emotional states that we might have. But on the negative side, it makes us afraid to change. Gee, I've always done it this way. This is really easy. I can do my work really quickly. Why would I want to change? And as a manager, then, we've got to look at these kinds of behaviors that we know need to change because the business requirements are changing, and then find a way for people to work their way through changing a comfortable and reliable habit. So I want to tell you a story that Duhigg tells in the book. From a business perspective. A number of the items in the book are from personal habits, but there is a whole section of the book that's about business problems. In this case, he describes the Alcoa aluminum story. Alcoa aluminum makes aluminum, right? There's a picture of what it looks like. They were, several years ago, really having a hard time. Decreased revenues, decreased profits, business activities were slow. They weren't meeting their quotas. There were a lot of errors in the production cycle. People were making mistakes. There were a lot of injuries that, of course, slowed production. So the company was really not doing very well. The board of directors then hired a brand new CEO, very experienced, very knowledgeable CEO to turn the company around. And one of the first events for the new CEO was to visit Wall Street and to give a presentation to the stock analysts and the brokers and the people who would be buying Alcoa stock. And he did something really unusual and surprised everybody. In fact, as a result of his speech, a lot of people sold their stock, which turned out to be not a smart thing to have done. But he came in and said, you know, he didn't have a whole list of platitudes about how he was going to turn the company around and make magic happen. He said, my major goal for the next year or 2 years will be to make us 100% accident-free. And everyone in the audience was shocked. I mean, that's what you're going to do? What? 100% accident-free? You're going to eliminate the errors in the company? How in the world is that ever going to improve the company's revenues? We don't get it. We're going to go, let's bail out. And people rushed out of the room to sell their stocks. Well, it turned out he really understood how to make a change in a company that had fallen into really unproductive habits. So when he went back to the company, what he tried to do was change his behavior. He met with the unions. He met with the workers. He met with the plant managers. He said, you know, we really need to get together and improve safety here. We need to change the behaviors of everybody because people have not been working in a safe way. Well, the workers thought this was a great idea. You know, none of them wanted to get hurt. You know, that was not productive. That was not a good idea. The managers, the plant managers thought it was also a good idea. You know, they didn't want to have people hurt. That means they had lost work time. Every time an accident happened, the plant would be shut down. You know, if you had emergency medical people coming in to fix the problem, and then they'd have to start up again. An injury or a safety problem might ruin an entire production line, a production route. And it certainly cost more and more time. So everybody in the company got together behind the CEO and said, let's reduce the number of errors that we're having. Let's increase safety. Well, what happened as a result of that? People dedicated to increasing safety. Workers met together. They met with unit managers. They said, we need to fix this. Here's an area that is safety risk, high safety risk. Let's fix that. Let's change a process because we know that it's a dangerous process and people are going to get hurt in that process. So people worked really closely together to improve the safety quality in the company. Well, what resulted as a better production time, fewer errors in production, you know, better performance all the way around. The CEO was incredibly successful. He turned the company around. He improved the culture. He changed the culture. That made the company more profitable, and it made customers happy because they weren't getting products that had problems because of errors. Absolutely changed everything around. So focusing on the right behavior to change, one that everyone thought was a great idea within the company, resulted in a fantastic change in terms of the company's profitability, and stock prices, of course, went up. So this is the kind of thing we as managers really have to look at to say, can we do something like this in our own organizations when we're seeing, problems with productivity, when we're seeing problems with time spent on certain activities as part of the work process. So let's look at it in a little bit different way, because I want to bring this back to our content and our problems. And this is a story that Julie McElher and Margaret Parsons are going to tell when at the Best Practices Conference in September. They are the managers of the group at Microsoft that creates the developer documentation. Basically their audience is programmers. And this has always been a very product-focused set of content. Each function of the product, of the software, is well documented with lots and lots of detail and huge amounts of time. And that's been going on that way for a long time. The problem is the customers are not happy. Customers are telling them that we need to know not what all the features and functions are, but what we can do with them. So this team has been moving from product-focused content to customer-focused content. However, it has meant changing habits of senior technical writers, experienced technical writers, who have long-held beliefs about what customer content should be. And changing to a new way of writing, to a new way of thinking about content isn't easy. Those habits are strongly held. They're dear to the hearts of the people who have been doing this work for a long time. They think it's been the right thing to do, and now the customers are coming and the management's coming and saying, you really have to change that. So the management team, the team that's been behind this, is going to talk about what has happened to change this behavior, and they're feeling that the whole process has been really quite successful. So come and hear about the details of this. So we have a little poll question to ask you now, right in this context. Do you have habits in your organization that you want to change? So I think we can open the poll.
Yep, it's open now.
Yeah, and go ahead and vote. We've got 4 choices. Okay, I think we've got a good representation. Vince, can you show the poll results?
Yep.
Okay, really interesting. 53% of you, you're at the right presentation, are already working on a change that needs to happen in your organization. And another 37%, then that means 90% of respondents want to make a change but don't know how. So hopefully we'll give you some ideas, including those who are already working on it. And we did have 1% that said, no, everyone here is perfect. And we want to hear from you later. Okay, let's go on. Managing change, asking yourself, what are the kinds of questions? How can we be more innovative? How can we better meet what our customers really need from us? And then the big question that we're always being asked to address is how do we cut costs and increase productivity? Does it mean that in our organizations we already are doing things by habit or behavior that are really not viable any longer, that we really need to change. And then as managers and team members, what is it going to mean? What is it going to feel like to change the way we work? And how much resistance are we really going to find when we try to do that? So one of it means identifying routine behaviors. Remember that first circle of interest in the habit loop are the routines. Routine behaviors are things that are accomplished with almost no thinking. They're familiar, they're comfortable, even if they're sometimes boring and the same old thing, and I'm not being really very innovative here, and I don't really get a lot of ideas. They're safe, right? They don't lead anyone out of the comfort zone. And I love this little cartoon. It says one more thing. I want motion sensors in all the cubicles, and because nobody's moving, and we have to get them to move. So we want to identify what is that behavior that we really need to change, and it may take a little time to do that because sometimes these behaviors are so subtle that it's really important to identify the thing that you really are looking for. Learn the excuses. I mean, sometimes that's the language is something that you're really going to have to think about. And this is one I hear all the time because we're often urging people to take a much more customer-centered approach. That's the minimalism agenda. How do we know what we need to know what our customers are doing. We need to get out of our cubicles. We need to go and visit customers. We need to talk to customers on the phone. We need to interact with customers on blogs. And what do we get as a response? You can see there's a habit here. They won't let us. We're too busy. We can't really develop scenarios because we don't know what our customers are doing. Takes too much time. I'm too busy now. I've got too much to do. I don't have time to go talk to customers. It's scary. Maybe we'd find out that what we're sending to customers isn't really what they want. I'm not sure I want to know that. Okay, I'm sure you've heard this same sort of thing going on. Okay, so now what? Another poll question. It's my second poll question. Have you already identified the business problem that you need to solve? The routine that you need to change? Okay, I think we've got a pretty good vote. And it looks like, from the results, that almost half of people, similarly to who's working on a change, have identified a business problem that they need to solve. And identified, hopefully, the routine behavior that they really want to change. And another group is interested in, is working on this and trying to identify it. And then we have a smaller group that says, no, we haven't done that yet, but we need to. Okay, so what do we have? We've got to, first of all, then, recognize what are the rewards that people are getting out of this behavior that they've been doing all this time. Maybe it's the easiest way to work. Maybe it's a comfortable way that you've learned and you know how to do this, and don't change my habits. I don't want to do that. We've got enough to do. It's just meeting the next deadline is more important. We really don't want to we're getting a lot of rewards out of what we do now. People tell us it's fine, we meet our deadlines, and everybody's happy. In so many cases, I hear from publications people that, the major goal is we meet the deadlines. Well, what about the quality and the customers and all of the other things that we should be paying attention to? Is that enough? Is that enough of a reward? Wouldn't there be some better possibilities? We get the, the work we do is easy. We just get the feature updates from the developers and we fix them up. It can get a little boring, but it's a job. I've got these things that we're already doing. It's okay. So change ahead, right? Identify this business problem. And I think where you're going is to say that the way we're operating now is just not viable. It's too expensive. It's ineffective. We aren't doing the work that we're expected to do from our customers. We're not getting things done that everybody needs us to do. What we do takes time and energy away from doing things that are more effective. And it's out of date. So change ahead. How are we going to change what we're doing? And I would suggest that not changing in our organizations is also dangerous. And it's dangerous, and I just heard a story this very morning where senior management came in and said, publications isn't producing enough quality to meet customer needs. You're doing, we don't know, you're not doing things that are making a difference with the product or with customer satisfaction. So if you don't change your direction and decrease costs, increase productivity, increase quality of your work, we're going to find a way to outsource this. Right? We're going to get rid of this group of people. You're too expensive. We'll outsource it. We'll get customers to create their own documentation. We'll move it offshore, but we can't continue to do the things that we've been doing. Now, that's a pretty strong message about having to change a habit. This is dangerous. This is going to have a bad effect. So, okay, what do we do next then? We need to establish a plan, right? What are the effective habits that we want to promote? Well, that includes building knowledge about what it is we want to do, building the skills that people will need to do the work the way we want them to do, so adequate training, experience in trying something new, but then we've also got to increase the desire for people to really want to do something in this new way. Now, sometimes it's a burning platform, like the threat of, jobs going away is enough to increase that. If our problem, the thing we want to change, for example, is getting to know customers, well, what do we need to do? And what do we see groups actually doing to make this kind of change? This is an actual report I have from a senior manager who's made a change in a focus on customers in his organization. First of all, provide training on the new ways of working, the things that people need to know how to do. That's knowledge. Role play. Role play getting customer feedback. Practice talking to customers. We've seen groups do that extremely successfully. It's a skill building practice. Then find opportunities to actually interact with real customers. Make assignments. Ask people to try it out. Then measure the progress. How are we doing? Or have we visited, or talked to 3 customers in the last week? Do we have milestones in place? Are we getting ready to do a customer site visit? Do we have our site visit plan all worked out? Have we practiced how we're going to interact with the customers? Measure the progress toward our goals, and then certainly reward success. Say, this is really, everybody's done a great job. We've found wonderful new information. and then start that loop again. Establish your plan. Identify the cues, right? Now I want to talk another direction, right? This is a habit that I've had to work on as a manager. I always assign my writers a book to write. Everybody is responsible for a book. And, there's a lot of really good reasons to do that. Changing that would be time-consuming. I'd have to think about assignments in a different way. This is really easy. Besides, the engineers really like working with just one writer on their book. And the writers like owning their work. They get to do everything. They don't have to bother about working with anybody else. But, guess what? We're going to have to move to topic-based authoring. And a number of people are going to have to contribute topics because we sure don't have time to do it all separately, for everyone to duplicate everybody else's effort. We've got a lot of things that we can share, but that means that we need teams and they need to be working together. But gee, this is really comfortable and easy, and wouldn't it be too hard? I don't know if I can do this. I got to think about this in a different way. Well, what's the routine that I really use? Well, one time I had to ask somebody to write a few topics for somebody else, and they weren't very helpful. It takes too much work to work with other people. I can do it faster myself. And as I'm hearing this language and going through my head, it reminds me of having little children and getting them to help with the dishes. Isn't it always as the mother, or father, that doing the dishes yourself is a lot faster and easier? But you really want your kids to learn a good habit, cleaning up after themselves, contributing to the family, working as part of a team. So you put up with their grumping and that they're a lot slower than you would have been, and maybe they break a dish or two. But it's the only way you're going to be able to change the routine. You're going to change the way things are done, and that's going to have a really important reward. Identify the rewards, right? Well, the rewards on that old way of working, everyone writing their own books, what do we hear from people? I'll get all the credit. If I do this really nice job, everybody will pat me on the back, and I'll be rewarded. The engineers will think I'm just really great. And it'll show that I can do this better than anybody else. It'll be done my way. I will own the work, and I won't have to deal with those kids washing dishes. Be a lot easier. Identify what the rewards are, and then change the rewards, right? What's the business problem? We really need to have more collaboration to ensure that we have consistent, reusable content. We need to build content that we can reuse everywhere. We need people to be talking to one another about their content. We need to develop teams, because the way we're operating today is expensive and ineffective and out of date and dangerous. Folks, I'm heading out to a trip next week where we're talking to a whole team in a completely different culture, which will be challenging, about changing this very kind of thing, where everybody's been doing his or her own book. And guess what? We've got duplicated topics everywhere, and some of them are right and some of them are wrong, and customers can't find anything, and I'm sure you've heard this complaint before. So we need to identify ways that make this change possible. And what's going to be the plan? Well, we're going to recommend that we set up a new workflow, that we set up a process so that things need to be done differently. And we're going to hope that the managers will be willing to create domain experts, people who have knowledge of certain subject areas across deliverables, across product lines. We're going to help define some new best practices. And role play, actually we're doing that next week. We're going to role play the change to a collaborative model. And we're also, because the customers need topics, and need to find just the piece of information they need, we're going to recommend that they get rid of the books in the final deliverables. Now that's a pretty big business change, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens, to see if we can get this team to practice collaborative habits and to build the knowledge and the skills they need. The desire, the want to, is going to have to come from the internal team focusing and moving in a new direction. So we want to create rewards. I hope everybody's seen our Colorado Gold Medal winner. There she is on the right, Missy Franklin, who comes from Denver area and has been on all of our news programs, right? Create rewards, right? Make yourself more employable. People who know DITA, who can collaborate, who can create effective topic-based information products are in great demand. I keep hearing from recruiters who are saying, I can't find these people, can you help? Customers, we're finding at least, think this is great. New ways of doing things, new ways of delivering information. Sometimes they hesitate at first because they have their own habits. You know, it's always in chapter 13 of this book, I can find it every time. You've moved my cheese, but I guess, you know, I've started to use this, and it's actually a lot better than it used to be. And I can find things more quickly, and it's more consistent. And then you're going to find yourself part of a winning team. Everyone gets the gold medal. Missy Franklin said she prefers to the team rewards because, as she said, everyone gets a gold medal, not just one person. It's a really good story to tell. New rewards, new ways of doing things. Now I can say join us in Monterey. This is what we're going to be talking about, power of habit. And we're going to have a small, tight group of presentations about the power of habit and changes that people have had happen in their organizations really effectively. So we're going to hear 7 stories. And then we're going to do an interactive exercise. Actually, we're going to practice the cue, the routine, and the reward. We're going to practice that. So we're going to put this whole thing into play in trying it out and see how well it goes. And we're going to think about, you know, making change happen at that presentation. So I hope you come. I hope this is a good beginning. And you'll find Duhigg's book stimulating and fun to read. Thank you. I think we're ready for Vincent for some questions.
Terrific, JoAnn. It's actually me coming back in. Thank you so much. This has been definitely eye-opening, at least for me, hopefully for the rest of the audience. We do have a couple of questions, so I'd like to address them now, and then probably one is going to take a considerable amount of our time, so we can add the others in later. But at any rate, Beth would like to know, and this is really a super question, what are the key words that should be used when discussing change with executive teams for their content strategies? And what are some of the common obstacles and suggestions on how to overcome them?
Well, you know, actually I was having this question, this discussion this morning with one of the groups that's going to present at the conference, because they've been making this executive business case. So really interesting to get the question asked. And I think what I think the key words are going to be is an alignment with the corporate strategy. The corporate vision of where this company is going. If you haven't read your strategic plan, if you haven't been in on the CEO's direction-setting discussions, you know, are they having webinars about that with the stock people? Can you get recordings of them? You know, what are these things? What are the things that are being talked about? Because what people don't want to hear is your problems and the fact you need more people and you need more money and blah, 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 all your complaints. The key words are we can do things that will work in conjunction with the strategies of the corporation. If that company, for example, we have a company that has been getting really bad customer satisfaction ratings. And they really need to improve customer satisfaction because the threat is that those customers will be looking for a different product, for something else from a competitor. And you need to come into that conversation and say, we can have a major role in customer satisfaction. But we've got to be able to change the way we create content because we know that customers don't like what we're providing. It's not effective. And we understand that we've got to make this change happen. So it's aligning with the corporate strategy, I think, that's going to be really important.
Super. I will also say to the audience that while I won't get into details right at the moment, but Part 3 will be geared directly to some of these more specific case study type of items. So make sure if you cannot, well, whether you get to Monterey or you can't get to Monterey, certainly make sure that you join in for Part 3 as well.
Mm-hmm.
So another question from Kelly, JoAnn. It said, she said you mentioned step 1 of your plan was assigning domain experts. Can you expand on this? Do you mean product domain, data domain?
Yeah, okay. Very good question. I've been working, one of the advisory council members for the CIDM is Daphne Walmer from Medtronic. And she and I have been working with this idea of domain expertise for a number of years now. And Daphne is the most successful implementer that I know of. And because after they moved to single sourcing and to XML authoring across their product line, they found that assigning people individual books on, they make pacemakers and defibrillators and implantable devices for people with having heart problems. A lot of similar products, right? And assigning people individual pieces, or even 5 or 6 books each, meant that they were not getting the reuse that they needed because of these subtle differences in the content. So they decided to follow this domain expertise idea, and that is to assign one person to concentrate on one part of the technology and learn how that technology was implemented across the products. So you become an expert in that aspect of the technology, and you really go deep into that in order to ensure that they don't lose somebody, or somebody's out or sick. They have an understudy for that. So it's almost like, you have a theater, right? And everybody has a role, and you're expert in that role, although you might have an understudy for your part, just in case. But you're expert in your role. But the actors then come together to form the whole play. Everybody following their specific role and becoming expert in that role. Well, that's what domain expertise is about. And Medtronic has had this in place, at least in that division, for a number of years. It's been extraordinarily successful. We'll hear from another team member in this third part of this presentation series who has done the same thing in his organization, but is newer at it and is trying it out and is trying to help people learn a new way of working. But to increase the amount of consistency in writing about products, domain expertise is a really interesting way to go.
Excellent. I think we have time for one more. Robin would like to know, what are some of the challenges from shifting writer assignments from book level deliverables to subject domain assignments? We are making the shift, but are finding that we can't completely eliminate, I'm having a little trouble
The book assignment.
Book assignment. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. Having been in trouble.
Yeah, I understand completely this question. Well, there's a couple things to think about. One is that we are exploring so many new ways of getting away from books altogether, not delivering books, to delivering topics in a web environment, to creating documentation websites that are not just, click on and download this 14,000-page book, but, actually can take people to individual topics, to collections of topics, and allow them to build their own collections. Those are the directions that we think are most viable going into the future, so that no one has a book assignment. Assignments, the book gets built out of the parts, right? And if you're in an XML environment and you're developing maps and submaps, then building that book is really the role of a publication specialist, somebody who can make sure that the publishing pipeline is working correctly, that all the style sheets are getting done. So, the book building process shifts hands, or it goes away altogether. So, those are the directions, again, changing habits that I think are really the most powerful ones going forward, especially as we start to think about mobile devices and handheld devices and delivering content in new ways.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for attending. This concludes today's broadcast. You can access the recorded version from the webinar archive section of dclab.com. And please join us for part 2 of the series on September 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and part 3 on October 18th at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I hope I will be seeing all of you in Monterey, as I will be attending along with JoAnn. So
Linda,
please stop by and say hi. Yes?
Linda, do we need to, I can put this in the chat, and that is the URL for the conference website.
Oh, that would be excellent. Yes, if you can. And that would be excellent. And then we can also, Vincent, if you can add that to the webinar page, that would be great also.
Except I just got the wrong one here. Let's try it again. That was still my YouTube. There it is. Okay.
I'll also add the link to the email that all the attendees will be getting tomorrow.
Okay,
That's
great.
perfect, perfect. I also, before everyone clicks off, I did want to also remind you that our next webinar, which is actually the 4th in our Reality Check series, co-sponsored by RSI, entitled Reality Check, The Truth About DIY CMS and Conversion, will be presented by Pat Sabosic of Elm City Consulting. And that is on the 29th of August. So we hope everyone will be attending that as well. JoAnn, thank you so much. Again, it's just, I think, the most terrific information for companies to be able to begin to absorb. And it isn't easy, but I appreciate greatly and look forward to session 2. And I will see everyone in Monterey. Have a great day.
Linda. Bye-bye.